Going live. Click all the buttons. All right. Just setting up a few other things. Almost feels like I should have put some text up saying, "Pardon me, be right back." Looking at a couple sites here. And almost going to get started. Let's see. It's super bizarre to see myself on there, but all right, let's get into it. So the task at hand is we did not had an email series go out for our invitation to the workshop, and we were excited about some of the actions, some of the response, but we think that we can do better. And looking at the page, we went with something a bit too basic and easy. Not easy, easy is the wrong word. Just too basic. Doesn't really well representing the brand. So wanted to gussy it up a little bit and try to do a better job creating excitement around it. And then second, so firstly, make it seem a bit more higher quality. Let's spend some time to make it to really blow out the design a little bit. And then secondarily, I think what we were kind of concerned about is the way this was laid out, that there's 4 sessions available. The intent is that you only need to go to one session, but having the 4 of them there is problematic. Like who wants to go to 4 hour and a half long sessions, right? So it seemed daunting. In fact, you only need to choose one. So that's 2 things that we wanted to improve upon. The initial idea where I wanted to get to was to work a little bit on the text and the value prop, and also kind of mention that it's free right out the bat here. Get some kind of nicer imagery to get folks excited. And then largely too, wanted to try where really explain that there's only one session. You only need to go to one session. So choose one of 4. Again, that English is a little tricky. And even for this, I think what I want to do is, so anyway, sign up free. We'll throw them down into this page and have them select one of them. Those will go to a focused sign up page. We'll just collect their information. What is kind of fun about this current exercise, I'm sort of tightrope walking without a net. I don't really know where we're going to end up on this design, but I know at very least we need to feel pretty confident about the content. We just need to get that layout done. And the 2 main issues, and one, a bit of, call it razzle dazzle for just ensuring that it looks nice. Get people interested in it. And then 2, explain about the sessions. So without delay, let's get, we had a nice image that we had on our main website. I thought we'd start with this one. So first thing I did was to, get our logo up in there, and then matter of hierarchy. So elevate your practice. Just this is about you and your practice and how to improve it. Try to get the message across right away as clearly as possible. Next, we're looking at a little bit of the content, which we didn't have on the previous site. Kind of describes like what it's about, and then try to have some leading content so that they'll know that there's more coming, the more reason to scroll. We also had a concern that people were landing and it looked like this, and it was sort of like choose one of 4. So not very appealing. Didn't get to really learn what it's about. How to distinguish yourself in competitive landscape. one of those fascinating things with marketing. And there's just no right answer. It's like how do you determine what clip will go viral, right? It's not like there's just one true formula that's going to absolutely guarantee success. So if anything, it's just a little bit of push and pull to try to figure out what's going to work. So I find this image a little flat. I do wonder if we can soften it a bit by putting some rounded corners. You see how doing like tiny things like that kind of makes it feel a bit more intentional? Like we go back to the squares. That's not bad, right? But the logo itself tends to have a bit of roundedness to it. Even this square here, then the button, it is rounded. So all of a sudden, it almost feels like it's out of place. Or it's like I've seen an image and someone just like plastered an image down there. So why don't we round those corners? And then I had previously with a design, there's a few things I wouldn't mind picking up on. We'd had in some of our video thumbnails that we've done, we had this kind of motif with squares, which very much aligns with our quadrants of the RISA questionnaire itself. So that's kind of like a nice call in, call out, call back. In addition, otherwise, we had these streaks. I don't know if that's an actual, that's right, that's in a different file. So I think we're looking into the square motif instead. So let's play with that. Tell you what, let's bring this over here and see how we best like it. Not even. Just do it live. Do it right on there. The two ways I'm thinking about it are just right on the photo contained within it, and then secondarily kind of outside, like breaking the photo. So just add some visual interest to an otherwise kind of flat photo. That's 40, that's 20. Okay. Let's go with 60. Let's go with 80. If you do think of these like all as pieces of paper lying on top of each other, we're talking about layering them. And in so layering, I mean, the more pieces of paper or cardboard that you put, the more natural depth it tends to have. So as a kind of cheap fix to add a bit of depth to a photo, or what do you want to kind of call like a photo element? You can just like have these things layer and show up. A trick that I've done here to have it kind of fade a bit more into the background was to have the opacity of this one so it's a bit more transparent. So it just creates this visual interest. Like, what are these squares? Like, we're seeing these repeated throughout it. So up there and up there. Interesting. Now let's try another version where we're going to break the border. Okay, well, let's just have this like stay inside. So that's one version. Let me show you a trick of how you can travel through time. So Control Z to undo. I want to get back to that previous design I had. So what I'm going to do is select all of this. Where should I put you? Kind of overthinking it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is copy this and then just keep pressing Control Z. I'm going to go back until boom. I got to right back where I was, and if I press Control V, that new element I created appears. As much like I mentioned on my last stream, the great thing about digital that a lot of times we don't take advantage of enough is like it's infinite. Like we can create 1 million boards if we want to. So there's no need. It's not like we have to go to the printer every time we want to do this. So there is no need not to just duplicate, to check and recheck and see which one we like better. Okay, this I'm kind of into. Let's kind of rework that space there. Okay. So of the two, so let's look at this. Then let's look at this. So I think that's better. And it's reinforcing kind of what we're talking about in a few ways. So this looks like a meeting with a client or a prospect. They are connecting, they're vibing. And what's great too with these squares is that, it's as if this knowledge is enabling the conversation, which kind of speaks. So, in a sense, we're kind of stretching the metaphor, but we're reusing elements of the design throughout the design. And the real important thing will be to continue to this theme. Like what I don't want to do is like later on switch just to lines, introduce something brand new. So throughout the entire rest of the design, if I'm kind of liking how this is looking, I'm going to need to ensure that this makes it through. Let's get all those the same. Okay. So that works for a pretty decent banner. A little bit of visual interest, kind of clean, nothing too crazy. Okay, what I'd like to do next is talk about introduce our hostess with the mostess. Now, as far as I've often mentioned, we want to keep as few text and font treatments as possible. So that's 48 on the font size. This is 38. Let's try that first. So every time there's going to be a new idea or a new introduction, we're going to go make sure it's the same. Even the same for the color here, as few treatments and colors and fonts and sizes as possible. Let's increase this size. We have our dynamic duo. There's our two guys. We'll put that up like that. I think I'd like a bit of a color. There's an original banner that had this kind of like nice soft blue to it. I think will play, works well with the orange. Oops. Yeah, and again, the whole point of this was initial uptick of our landing page for the webinar was good, performed okay, but we think it could do better. And we're thinking that where before we had gone with a very pared down, clean, basic one, we think it might be able to perform better with something a bit more designed. And that's what we're going to try to implement. When I'm looking at this, it's on the top as far as all the balance. It's like I almost want to remove two or one of them, like really join exclusive workshop, lean cutting edge strategies. I think as opposed to those three, it kind of like just the one. If I read through those sentences, I get the feeling it was actually kind of workshopping it as opposed to actual need to have those three pieces of text. Reduce, reduce, reduce. Now that blue button, I will come back and address later. I'm not sure I'm down with that color. Okay, we got our fellows here. What I do need, I'm curious about splitting that up into two lines instead. It's just this is the way we have it on the website, which I kind of pulled it from. Oops, wrong copy. Let's go 3 lines, see what happens. Tell you what, even better than 3 lines, let's go 1, 2, 3. A little more manageable. Come on now. Just trying to grab the and word. Let's make that the actual symbol to reduce its prominence. Go Wade. I like to do with these type of things is, as much as these credentials are great, in many ways, the real payoff of those is just the fact that there are letters. So what we can do is reduce it down just to receive, give it its prominence, but not have it take up too much visual weight. And I'd made those 16. So let's do that same type of thing here. What happened to the... Oh, oops. I was designing on that one. Let's grab this text and I'll move it there and I'll delete this frame so I don't keep referencing it by accident. I would say I think so much of our battle as far as improving this, we're going to, you implement, you test it, check your results, and then you implement it, improvements, test it, check your results, and just keep on going. It's never just a one and done type of thing. As many landing pages and webinars as we've done, ultimately it's still going to be learning exercise for us. Okay, it's a bit of a I'm trying to see how I feel about this negative space. I tend to be a proponent of it, or enjoying it as much as I do. I just want to make sure it's kind of getting the right effect. So a certain confidence you have when you present something. It's a little awkward, isn't it? My one slight challenge is these are the updated photos, and embarrassingly, I'm not exactly sure where it is, and I need to get this thing done today. So I'm trying my best to kind of work with what I have. Let's see, we put that up there. So you'll see a trick with this. I wanted it to be kind of a slightly softer version of this same color, which actually this is kind of the blue. I think I'm mostly just going to stick with grays. As opposed to black, 333 is great because it's just a very dark gray. It's going to have a little bit more depth than a flat black. Now to have the one word soften a bit, all I've done is I've taken the text and I had it as a transparency of 80%. So it's going to pick up some of the color behind. When I go to implement this on the actual website, I'm going to need to, so here my design program is not going to let me do that for that. And it's okay for now. Still not quite doing what I wanted. Let's roll with the older photos that I have, and then I can scrounge around and find them. Let's move this down. Let's try a new version. Now, how do I know how to separate this evenly into two? Well, you draw a whole lot of squares. So one square. So this is the content area. 1, 2. I want to have an even area for two boxes I'm going to be making. 1, 2, kind of choose a width. Then we're going to scale it until usually that snaps. Come on now. All right, we'll do it the hard way. And that to be, how wide is my content that I'm targeting here? You'd think he'd know that as he was designing it. Let's go with 1300. Okay. This is 1300. So 650. Now let's add 10 to each side. So $630. And we have things spaced out. Next, let's recreate that box. Grab the blue color. We'll add a drop shadow. We've gone with a rounded border, so we want to keep that consistent in everything we do. That was at about an 8, I believe. All right, let's take the younger photos that I have handy. I'll hunt out those other photos later. We got 1, we got 2. I can't seem to escape this trick. I'm like the breaking of the boxes, which is sort of in line with here too, because we had like a photo as if that's our box or content area, then we have things breaking. So that certainly looks, it just gives it a bit of pizzazz. It's nothing but tricks. Now the question will be, do I put RISA founder, or do I have just the credentials? I think credentials, because at this point we really haven't talked about RISA, and this webinar is not heavily features the RISA, of course, but that's largely going to be just some really amazing content about marketing. So now batting number 31, hailing from Texas, Wade. Everybody in a startup should get a baseball card, huh? Stats and figures, collectibles, rookie cards. All right, Alex Urgia. So many different sized photos. The question will be what I do. Because I can always cut them off, but it feels a bit more pure if I don't. Let's go with that one. All right, this I will save and put away just in case. All right, let's take stock of already where we've come to. So this was the starting point, and we just did not imbue a lot of confidence on the top. There's no like kind of visual interest, nothing where we're trying to see it. And then secondly, with the sessions available, felt like it was kind of confusing and probably didn't hype up the hosts enough, both of who are in their own rights very prominent and successful people in the space. So we got about this webinar. What I'm curious about is how that should be displayed. Namely, do we get into what the webinar is first and then do the host, or the host and the webinar? Kind of feels like it should be about the webinar first. So it's 38. Roboto. This is just a minor detail. I think our site technically runs on Open Sans. Does it? Let me double check. I'm just checking on our own website to triple check the fonts. It's not going to have the greatest impact in the world, but it just helped me. Oh, interesting. You don't say. Okay. I am going to let that roll. Let's go with a open suns. Same. Keep like things together. It's pretty apropos, honestly, to be live tweaking these type of things. This is so much what marketing and launching is. It's just that perpetual learning, application, improvements, and just burrowing it down until things are perfect and firing off exactly how you want. Even with us and our landing page, I mean, the big difference is like we put it out there. We didn't quite have the results we want, given our best guesses and experiences we've had in the past. So not a big deal. Let's just do it again. Let's couple tweaks or launch it again. Couple tweaks, launch it again. And then until it just starts to perform exactly how you want it. That may be more like a, where did this end up? This is a 38. That is a 38. We will make this 38 stay the same. About this webinar. Okay. Not sure why they're not quite lined up, but there it is. Now, those two are good, but it's kind of a nice break from that content. I just wonder, should we get into like, what is the TLDR? Like, what is this actually about? The only pushback against that is it sort of depends on who you are and what you're doing. But in our case, having Wade and Alex itself is kind of a draw. So I don't necessarily have the right answer on that. It almost feels like I want it to be a TLDR. This is the event that you're going to come and see. Cool, interesting. Or is it better to first talk about the guys that are going to be running it? Or if we could make that smaller. Just kind of taking up a bit of nice space. That one is tricky. Tell you what, with all this talking, getting a little parched on the throat, but see this, I don't have a waiting screen, so I'm just going to type it out. Back in 30 seconds, getting water. It feels like I should have a waiting screen for that, but I do not. All right, I'll be right back. And back. That's how fast that was. Highlight of the show, guarantee it. watch this fool get some water because he's thirsty. Not sure my mute had worked from before, but anyway, so hosts or content. Not going to answer that. I don't have a right answer at the moment. So we'll just keep forging ahead. I'm going to get to this screen in a second. Let's get the next content piece. Move you up. Let's move you over. Okay, we got about the webinar. We have the hosts. From that, you need to stand out successfully, deliver your expertise. Next piece of content. I think this photo chosen was probably one of the weaker ones. So you often see trees, calm, nature in a lot of the financial advisor space. So that was the intent. And then you had this one that's different. How do you stand out? Okay, kind of clever, but I think did not quite hit what we were looking for. So let's put in here. Now I copy that text. How you can do the same thing from a website. It has multiple paragraphs. I just put it into Notepad. Get rid of all formatting, everything, and then bring it back in so I can use it as a mess with the text in its totality without like 3 different sections. For a passion, you can all that. Let's get this text laid out right. So one of the other things we had said, you need to stand out to successfully deliver expertise. Let's get that in about a title. What I was trying to do is we're following a pastor framework. So problem, you need to stand out to successfully deliver expertise. Might be better is like, how do you consistently get in front of the right people to deliver your value? I wonder which one's a better problem statement. You need to stand out. It's almost like I might try is actually switching those 2 sentences. So for a problem of this pastor, my problem is it's a long one, right? How do you get in front of the right people to deliver your value? Like I like to work consistently, but I'm worried I can workshop some of the text a bit later. Okay. So elevate your practice, workshop on marketing mastery for retirement income advisors. About this webinar, your hosts. How do you get in front of the right people to deliver your value? Before I do photos or anything else, now in the original, I kind of liked this layout, but let's start with this and see where we end up. Is this Open Sans? Okay, that's 28. How big is this? How big are you? Also 18. Just kind of the comment here. Let's go with, I'm going to take this text, I'm going to clean it up, get rid of all the formatting. Let's get it back into the screen. Wait. God bless undo. Understand the importance of a niche is one thing, differentiating yourself is another. Put this here. Get these paragraphs flowing correctly. I think it's going to be in the middle. We can shrink it down a bit. It's kind of nice about that is it's just a break from the repetition, so it creates a helps bring in focus a little bit and draw the eye and prevent people from getting bored and skipping over it. So we had a piece of content, and then we come down here, and all of a sudden the content is like a different width. Now you got to be careful with that. If you're zigzagging all the entire time, it can be problematic where nobody knows where to rest their eye. They start to get fatigued, but occasionally used can be really useful. I have these two lines, so it's nice and legible. And we had this two of the most important words kind of standing out from the rest. So coming in and kind of get the core content and then worry about getting the photos and everything else in a bit later. Okay, so that's another section. Yeah, in some ways, honestly, like besides some of the photos, I have to think if you want how creative do you want to be with the layout of any of this particular content. Ultimately, I think a lot of the initial falling down was really that banner as far as capturing attention and then being clear about the sessions. There's only so much you can do with content. This is one of the landing pages that we offer up to members of the RISA by way of example. So kind of like your stock standard, like left, right, and then just like other pieces of content. Sort of what I'm following with what we're doing today. Let's see here. I do like this idea of maybe getting some color in the background for the next section. Actually, I suppose if anything, like this one here, since I wasn't planning to do an image, kind of nice to break that up. Now for the color, I don't want to more base it probably on this kind of beige. Oof, that is not right, but that's because the opacity is off. Let's bring that down a bit, get to the right color. Add some bordering to there to further kind of separate it. What frustrates me a little bit about these sections is the problem is we want to, I want to have this content contained within the, I like having this centered, right? Like I like having this centered text. The challenge being that as soon as this is centered, it almost feels like the content underneath has to be centered, but this much text centered is going to be kind of difficult to read. To try to fix that, I'm looking at having this roughly align on the left and the right, and it still kind of makes a block for me. Okay, let's keep going with the text just to get the core stuff down, then we can continue to play around a bit. And service. Grab these three pieces. Let us strip the font. Oops. missed some wording there, with much larger budgets. Okay, unify message. Let's get this onto the screen. It's kind of like big. A couple lines to help delineate new sort of sections. Copying and pasting this text has not been super friendly to me, but I almost wonder, it's kind of like if somebody just skimming it. Unify your messaging across marketing, sales, and service. And it's almost like when I see boost your firm's enterprise value. So if we bolded that, because if you're only going to take one thing away, that's what this is about, right? That's what this like offering, that's what this webinar is going to be all about. So I could probably find a few other places to bold with that one. Okay, unify your messaging. The question I'm eventually going to have is the sign up. Should I have it up top or have it at the bottom? Because the benefit with this being this button can just lead to that one box. So it's like one source of truth from where it lives. Again, a question for another time as far as trying to get the basics in, and then we're going to start to play around a bit with two things, bringing these squares throughout so it feels unified. Which, I mean, even this gets me thinking, try to can't help myself. What I want to do here is almost like suggest that this is getting cut off. Implementing it will be a different story, but that's for future me to worry about. Bring you down. Okay, unify. So just already to kind of bring a cohesiveness to everything. So like we're taking style elements and reusing them for efficiency. Really like this to sit down. Whoops, that wasn't the one. I just want this to sit a lot more down in the background. As much as I want that consistency, I don't want it to be this entire story. Maybe this one even like a 20, like really just kind of hint that it's there. All right, next one is so as far as the pastor method is concerned, we've heading in front of the right people to deliver your value. I'll say this is one thing I might try as far as if we have time to do A/B testing. It's almost like elevate your practice, workshop of marketing mastery for retirement. And then as opposed to about this webinar, it's how do you get in front, like get into the problem. So the pastor, problem, agitate, solution, testimonials offer. And then on the offer, turn around and then talk about this is it. But let's get, as always, let's get this in and then kind of see how we can review it and improve it. We want to be heard and make a difference. Into the solution space. Let's get the text. Eighteen, good. So where we were, I don't want some of those photos, but we'll see where we kind of land. Projects into clients. Reveal the 5 key pillars. Again, would kind of like to have this centered. Tract. For this, I wanted to call out. So again, if you were just browsing, let's get all this content. Crafting specific messaging. How did it look on the first page? This is actually a bulleted list of the things we're doing, which is pretty cool. I do wonder if it's, given it's 5 things, would it make sense to do, kind of reuse these again, since we're kind of in a box thing? So the one thing to do makes a lot of sense. Go inside of here, just give it bullets. Right? Sort of makes sense. But given that, what is a bullet besides a delineation of various items that you have? So what if instead we keep using the squared idea and have 5 squares that kind of talk about what we're going to deliver? So somebody who's just kind of breezing down, if they're, again, not going to see anything, at very least they would see these 5 things that we're going to be offering. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think actually, I was going to say Figma actually has a way to do that a little bit more clever than I am. It's kind of muscle memory, unfortunately. Just can't help it sometimes. The old Illustrator 10 days. Okay. So now, if that's what we're doing, what we can do is craft specific messaging. I need this to not be like that and have it centered. I think largely if you find a motif, so it's like we have circles, we have streaks of light, we have dots, we have, in my case, squares. As you keep looking through, it's like, okay, how else can I work with that? Like, how can I add more squares in to convey message or like a range content? And this way, what I've decided to try is, well, I got these 5 points I need to get across. Why not just put each in a square to kind of keep that motif going? Put this in like that. I think that's centered. I can't sit here and say it's necessarily as effective for people to read, but if they are engaged, if they are enjoying the content and reading it, it kind of tends to have the desired effect, because we're essentially selling people here, right? We're trying to explain the benefits of this webinar. It's not they are reading a paper and need to, like a published study, much like many that we have, but they're not doing a public study and I need to get through it as efficiently as possible. Instead, this is very much a, let me walk you through a pitch to explain how we can help you. So having some niceties can certainly go a long way. So here so it's kind of like a title of a box and then a subtitle to get the second part. Again, the extra benefit being is if they only read the titles, they're still going to get the core concept or the value that we'd be providing. Do not like widows or single words that just land there. Okay, let's go with 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2. Humans love order, so ideally all of those, the spacing is all going to be the same. Now the color of these boxes, white would be fine, brown would be okay, or this kind of orange. I was curious if I could reuse a blue again. This is kind of a timing thing. What would be nice is to have icons for each of these. I'm not particularly convinced I'd be able to get strong enough icons in a short enough time, because the webinar is fast approaching and another email for this is going out soon. So I do need to get this done. There we go. Isn't that kind of like a slightly better way to present that information? Because otherwise, if you're just looking at like this text and then like 5 bullets, something a bit more interesting. Now, can these squares play a role in any of those? Either as, 2 cube by half sort of bullets. See, I was thinking like I could always move them around, as in like some are on the top, some on the bottom, but I wonder if that'd be distracting. Let's try it up in the other corner. This makes it harder to read. Yeah. I think in the bottom right corner gives just that little bit of visual flair without being too distracting. Now let's try to just mess them around a little bit to see if there's any kind of benefit. There is not. It just feels out of order. Okay, and then we got last bit of text. And again, we need to add some photos into here. We can get the photos in a bit. Let's see where they land up. Push that. I want to call out that. Curious if I should almost like drag out the stats where we've generated over 1.2 million in new revenue. And make it like the red, like really. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. This is like the brass tacks of these systems. Let's see, it's ungrouped there. Getting a bit sloppy there, but that's just because I need to wrap this up, unfortunately, but wanted to get that in at least. So I think what I want to do here, it's like choose one of 4 available sessions. And for each of those, we'll have a button. Yeah, I'm not sure this is the right button. I'm just worried that the other color is a bit angry. Oops, I had a border for some reason. Let's not do that. I'm either going to remove the stroke. I might try a gray to give it a little... it feels distracting. Let's instead remove the stroke, add a slight drop down, perhaps to help that drop down exist a bit. There we go. Let's go with that. Now that's our button. I'm not going to repeat the word free every single time. Let's see if we can shrink this down so it's going to fit a little better. It's even a little smaller. Oops. I want it nice and clickable. We just don't want it to be screaming. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make the dates bigger. Keep these all about the same. Let's see, center this. So trying to really drive home, or I think one of our previous failures is it's an ask to sign up for 4 sessions. You have to attend 4 sessions. That's a lot of commitment. It's like, no, it's 4. We have 4 individual sessions. You only need to go to 1. Opposed to so I'm looking at, if we look at this sentence, it's kind of hard to, a lot of letters, right? And it's really important because we really want to say 1. Or choose from 4 session times. Choose one session time. Or choose one session. That might be the better one. Choose one session. God, you could spend weeks just on the wording, huh? I was going to say like slot. Choose one session slot. Or choose a session as opposed to one. Yeah, it's almost like I just want to. I wonder if we should get some maybe FAQs down there. What's this? This is 38, right? Choose a session. Choose a live session. Workshop that a bit. So place where we started, like I said, I'm going to have to end it off here, unfortunately. I need to get to building it and have some other things to get to this afternoon, but we have our side-by-side and feeling better about it already. And I think there's some more tweaks to make. We are missing photos. I want to make sure I get some more content. Like we definitely need photos inside of these things, right? About this webinar, how do you get in front of the right people to deliver your value? Understanding the importance of that. So we have kind of our square motif going on. We have a much more shine up of the two hosts. Visual. Ooh, actually, that's a good point. Let's bring in a few of those visual elements to kind of like just seal the deal and wrap it up. Have to see how possible it is to actually implement that, but it's all right. Yeah, definitely need the photos inside of here. We will get that. I mean, the very least what I could do here isn't going to take too much time. I'd want to spend a bit more time on the photo selection. At the very least, we can just get a better sense of what it's going to look like when we have actual like photos done throughout here. Get a bit of spacing. Okay, we'll do some left to right. Let's bring that down, reduce that to the side. Whoops. Like I said, for the final, we're going to be a lot more purposeful in our selection of, and I think, kind of keep these square motifs going throughout. So it feels unified. I would say we could probably get a little closer, not too much. Yes, even those two photos just make it feel a little more finished. Bring it in. think, given the boldness of the sentence and that I want to kind of break that up before our big blue box segment. So just keeping some visual interest while keeping it on theme. And get rid of that. We'll have this as kind of like the call to action. This is our final kind of pitch. Okay, the pitch. There we go. Nope. Wrong button. Twice. Get out of there. Control B for bold instead of V for paste. There it is. Let's go with, I kind of like this photo for a playbook. Oops, I don't want to include the line. I'm going to put this one over here. Let's make sure that's the same size as our other photos. Line this up nicely. All right. There it is. Like I said, a bit more work to do for the squares to make sure everything's kind of singing the same tune. But let's take a look at where we ended up. So much more engaging capturing header, some interesting visual elements that go through, much more of a shine up on our two hosts. Yeah, I could see a different version of this being, this is almost the very first sentence. So about the webinar and the host, that's down below for a final pitch on everything. And instead, how do you get in front of the right people to deliver your value? That's the first thing. So before I want to read anything else, it's sort of like, that's what that's about. But I digress. The only thing is, like, again, like Wade and Alex are pretty big draws. So how do you get in front? Understand the importance. Just differentiate that section. It's about differentiating yourself, unify your messaging. You want to help you be heard and make a difference. 5 pillars. And since there's just 5 bullets, why not have it as 5 squares? Continue the motif. Nice visual, interesting thing for data or pieces of content. Proven playbook. And then a final pitch. Hey, come on in. Water's warm. And then a join us, and then the sessions. And for the sessions itself, as opposed to, just in case no one reads or understands these sessions available idea, it's going to be this. And actually, one other thing we wanted to do was include a day. Because people, it's one thing if it's on a Wednesday, because, you know, I have baseball on Wednesdays, or I have this kind of commitments on that. So just helping guide them to which the actual days are. All right. Not a bad improvement. Going to have to do some final things before that goes live, but we are going to test this against what went live first and see if we can improve our click-through rate. I mean, as I said, the fascinating thing about this itself is it's very much in line with the amazing content that we're going to reveal for how to think like this, build like this, put together these type of pages, access to our, you know, default templates and photos and imagery to try to help folks with leads, but it makes for an interesting design exercise. Thanks everybody for being with me. Any questions, obviously do reach out to me. You can find me on Twitter at Alexander Trevor, or my link on here. Happy to connect. Otherwise, cheers to your great looking work, and we'll see you at the webinar. Ciao.